thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Evin, for inviting me and to be part of this. So it's an honor to be part of this panel. My colleagues Gillian and Matt, they are far more experienced than I am in terms of the technical side of JWST and what it can achieve, which is sort of a completely different angle. Our work really is more sort of on the ground, reaching out to communities everywhere, and I think based here in South Africa. So I'm well, I was born in South Africa. I grew up on a sugarcane farm here in a rural part of South Africa. And we went through, really interesting times in this country, many of you know. But one of the things that it's done is that it makes us aware of the extreme inequality that there is in the world, and how important it is to try to bridge the inequality, how to find ways in which people in the top few percent of the world can potentially impact people in the bottom few percent of the world. And I think the culture in South Africa is one, I'm glad Matt mentioned this. It's one where we recognize the importance of humility and the importance of seeing that our work sort of impacts all of society. And so, when we talk about JWST and all the amazing images that that come out of it, the work that we do with the Office of Astronomy for Development, the work on the African continent, comes down to very often asking the question, how can we connect this to the world? How can we connect this to the people on the ground? And I think that access is a really big issue, and a really important point. But just getting people aware of this, and we sometimes say that if you're in the astronomy field and if you want to start a conversation with anyone on an aeroplane, you say, I'm an astronomer. If you don't want to start a conversation, you say, I'm a physicist. And I think astronomy has this amazing ability to capture the imagination of everyone in the world, and this is part of our goal. So I'm going to talk about sort of the broad international aspects. I'll mention some of the exciting things on the African continent, and then tie it back to James Webb. So the International Astronomical Union put together this plan under Evin's leadership, actually, and this plan is important because as the global professional body, it's a plan that looks at how we can have an impact in all areas relating to astronomy, including research, communication, education, and development. Now, within the IAU, they've set up various offices. Ours deals with development, but there's also one dealing with education, one dealing with outreach, one dealing with young astronomers, and one dealing with dark skies protection. Now, astronomy is this field that has the links, to all these different areas, technology, the science, which you've heard lots about in this meeting, but also importantly, the culture and society, that inspirational aspect of astronomy. And what we're trying to do is to see how this impacts on development. Now, we use the Sustainable Development Goals as our closest definition to widely accepted definition of what development means. But essentially, it's about trying to make the world a better place. And that's essentially what this office that's hosted here in Cape Town with the National Research Foundation and the IAU, it's all about trying to figure out how to make the world a better place. And when we have different aspects of astronomy, whether it's astronomy tourism or the capacity building, like how can it fit into this broader sustainable development goals? Now, partnerships are super important, and Matt mentioned how important it was, these massive teams. The space that we're trying to create here is a space across disciplines where we bridge science disciplines like the astronomy discipline, physics, with development disciplines, so social sciences or development economics. The idea is to create a space where people can talk, from the astronomy perspective, but also we bring in people from the development perspective, and this includes people that are really working on the ground, like for example, mental health professionals. We have regional offices around the world. Again, the spirit of humility. It's that there's no way that if we want to really impact on humanity, then we need to look at the entire world. And there's no way that one country or one group can understand what's best for different parts of the world. And so we set up regional hubs, regional offices to coordinate activities in those either geographic regions or culture, language or cultural regions around the world. And these regions help us to implement projects, to rally communities. Since we've started this work in 2013, it's been that principle. Like, let's reach out to anyone anywhere in the world and say, how can you use astronomy for development? And there's been a few hundred projects so far that's been implemented around the world. And the challenge has been, use astronomy to help your community, and let's see what ideas you come up with. And there's been lots of ideas that connect to different areas of development, whether it's economic development, dealing with inequality, dealing with capacity building, gender equality, even infrastructure and art. And from these, we extracted 3 flagship projects. And when we talk about astronomy for development in our context, these are the areas we're focusing on at the moment from those many projects. One is to look at economic growth. And a big aspect of that is astronomy tourism. So how we stimulate astronomy in rural communities, especially where there's access to the night skies. The second one looks at astronomy for mental health. This effectively uses that inspiring power of astronomy, those images that we get from our telescopes. How can we use it to have a positive impact on mental health? And so we partner with psychologists and mental health professionals to say, is this something where you can build it into your therapy for mental health patients? Is it something that can generally help the population in terms of mental health? And the third flagship deals with data skills. And Gillian mentioned some of the areas where we can specifically apply our skills outside of astronomy, and so we use groups where we explore how our skills in astronomy can be applied to data outside of astronomy. So this is sort of the global picture, what we're trying to do in terms of general astronomy for development. But this is, it's the fact that this initiative and these projects, even though it's under the International Astronomical Union, it's being run out of the continent of Africa. And many of you know the continent of Africa, many of you would have visited, but there is a general impression of the continent of Africa that this is the area most in need. And it's not just an impression. Statistically, the world's most underdeveloped countries are in this region. And so we've been working especially close with our African colleagues to see how astronomy can be used to impact on development. And as when JWST was being developed, there were a number of spin-offs, a number of benefits that accrue. On the African continent, there's been a lot of activity that's led to this year hosting the IU General Assembly for the first time on the continent, because of that growth of astronomy projects, of the astronomy community. And in a number of countries, there are telescope facilities, there are growing telescope communities, there's more interest in investing in science and technology. But what we're trying to do is as there's growth of this infrastructure, these instruments, on the radio astronomy side, everyone knows about the square kilometer array and what this could do for the continent in terms of just growing that skills base and engineering base. We're trying to ensure that at the same time as this growth of this field of astronomy happens on the continent, that we build society as well. And so all projects are tied to societal development. We have an African Astronomical Society, and they have built into their DNA that we grow astronomy together with society. And so when we come back to JWST, and there's one big aspect, which is the inspirational aspect. It's how the images generated simply change the world. It changes how we think, but it doesn't change that for everyone, because not everyone has access to it. And so even though these images are freely available, but it's freely available to those who can access it. And what we're trying to do is bridge that and try and get these images, get the information that we have about astronomy, the knowledge that we generate, to everyone around the world. And that's where these networks within the International Astronomical Union, within the different offices, comes in to try to spread this impact on our thinking, on human knowledge. Then there's this big area, that both Matt and Gillian spoke about in terms of the spin-offs, in terms of just the technological impact that we get from a project like James Webb. And I think many of these things happen by chance, and we know that although a lot of it is intentional, as we try to generate IP that can be commercialized or something that can benefit broader society. A lot of it also depends on chance, on someone knowing someone from another field and saying, look, we use this in our area. Can this be used in your area, if that's medical or otherwise? And I think the thing is about being intentional about that. And I think James Webb has done a great job. The Square Kilometer Array is doing a great job of trying to be more intentional about where our impacts can be. But then again, it comes to the question of accessibility. Will these technologies be accessible? Will the technologies benefit just those countries that are sort of on top? And I think this spirit of the data, the numbers that were shown earlier about where the publications come from, people having access to the archive, this openness is something that inspires a lot of things around the world. And it's also inspired us here in Africa when we sort of organizing this General Assembly. This will be the first General Assembly that's going to be open access. So all talks will be streamed live and so on. The principle is that let's keep making our science open. Let's bring the ivory tower down to earth, so to speak, and see how we can bridge the divide in a very unequal world at the moment. The reality is that these images that come out of James Webb, it really has the potential to affect someone in a rural village on the African continent, but we need to get those images there. And I think that's where when we talk about this world and making the world a better place, we are acutely aware of the majority of the world that have not been reached. So let me close by saying that JWC, it certainly had a significant impact on society, and it really has the potential to have a much broader impact as well if we look at just the whole world. And I think we just have to be intentional in driving that societal benefit, in recognizing that 90% of the African continent may not have heard of James Webb. So we need to get the information out there. We need to work together. And I think in working together, to emphasize again what Matt started off with in this session, is that humility is imperative. It's humility not just in how we work as teams and across fields, but also humility in recognizing that as much as we might see in our environments in terms of how much impact it's making, how much it's inspiring people, the world is a big place, and to reach all of it, we need to partner as much as possible with people from all over the planet. So with that, thank you very much.